What if I told you that Manchester United and Marvel, after billions of pounds spent, are on the same path to destruction? This is the cinematic universe of Man United, not the MCU, but the MUFC. To begin with, let's go back to the 2nd of May 2008. Iron Man is released, starring Robert Downey Jr., a redemption for the film's leading man in Hollywood, in a production now legendary for the change it ushered in. Iron Man sent ripples through the world and rode high at the box office. A new era in film was dawning, as the movie, created to sell toys, became a seminal moment in filmmaking. On the 11th of May that same year, Manchester United retained the Premier League in dramatic fashion, but 10 days later in Russia, ironically not the enemy country in Iron Man, in a change to what you generally expect if we're being fair, Man United achieved a goal 9 years in the making and became the best team in Europe by winning the Champions League. While the 1999 win is heralded as a singularly great achievement, they had failed to back it up, frustrating their great manager at the time, Sir Alex Ferguson, who reinvented the club and team numerous times over those 9 seasons with the goal of another European win. And in the most dramatic of fashions, they achieved it via a penalty shootout victory over Chelsea, their closest rivals in England, over the previous 5 years. John Terry cried. Man United had their old stages to thank in Edwin van der Sar and Ryan Giggs for the win, and Sir Alex's own European redemption was complete.
Fantastic. Oh, we deserve it.
Both Marvel and Manchester United at the time were at their zenith, with clarity of vision and direction. Of course, even in success, there are swings and misses, and for every Incredible Hulk, which came in the summer of 2008, there's a Zoran Tosic.
Who?
Still, Disney's purchase of Marvel propelled them onwards, and to prove our synergy, despite the odd interesting transfer deal and some Premier League challenges from Chelsea and Manchester City for Man United, both stayed pretty much at the top of their respective fields, with little or no interference from above in their core missions, making box office smashing films and winning football matches. Also, there's some fun nominative determinism as well, with Man United finishing second the year Iron Man 2 came out, and leaving Chelsea Thor in 2011 by winning the league 2 weeks after Kenneth Branagh's arty take on the Norse god hit cinemas in the UK. Also, Captain America the First Avenger came out around that time, and because I liked the Thor joke, I didn't do one about how Man United avenged losing their Premier League the previous year to Chelsea. But because of foreshadowing and lazy film titling, a year later that joke gets a rollover because The Avengers came out in 2012, with the expensively assembled cast, the invasion from a load of bluish people, run by a superpower that's been threatening to take over quietly for ages. As that happened on the screen, so it was in the football world. And as such, Manchester United had to work out how they'd avenge losing their title on goal difference to Manchester City. Hopefully you're getting where we're going with this by now. Anyway, as Captain America had said when he was still a bit weak and nerdy,
I could do this all day.
So could Man United, at that time anyway. And they needed their own super soldier. So in came Robin van Persie in the summer of 2012. They overcame the odds with a Premier League win. Marvel celebrated the culmination of the solo arc of Tony Stark, and there was a clear sense of identity about the MCU and the MUFC.
There's only one way we can express ourselves the proper way, and that's to perform properly.
For Sir Alex, a successor had been established, the pieces were in place to keep them at the top, and surely Marvel couldn't miss from here on in.
I think it works.
Now, those of you who know about the ensuing years from 2013 until now across Manchester United and Marvel will be quick to point out that it would be unfair to label the past 12 years for the latter in the same way as the former. And in many ways, you'd of course be right subjectively. Marvel have produced some incredible filmmaking moments over the last 12 years.
Yes, dear.
However, from here on in, the examination is more about how control and direction from the top has led to issues on the pitch and on the screen for both Man United and Marvel.
You were made to be ruled.
Since what is known as Phase 2 of the MCU began with Iron Man 3, there have been 30, yes, 30 films released, and who knows how many TV series, specials, one-offs, spin-offs and write-offs. But what's become more and more apparent is that control of the output from Marvel has become more removed from the filmmakers, with greater influence from the studio execs, which has led to, well, at best inconsistency and at worst, secret invasion.
Got a lot of apologies to make.
Now, compare what's happened at Old Trafford as a nucleus over the same time period. And I say nucleus because Man United have at times been pretty terrible away from home too. It's been 12 years since Fergie and 11 managers, head coaches, caretakers, or whatever you want to call them over that time. And like Marvel, there have been moments, but for the most part, it's been a slow decline towards, well, where we are now. Once the biggest, proudest and best club in the world, so those from Greater Manchester and large pockets of London would say, now a struggling powerhouse that's underperforming despite hundreds of millions spent in investment and struggling for an identity and having to bring back old favourites to reinvigorate their fortunes. Sound familiar? For the most part, in Phase 2, which takes us from 2013 until 2015, Marvel did pretty well in laying the foundation for their magnum opus that would arrive 3 years later. However, while you've got Guardians of the Galaxy bringing a completely different beat, and the plot armour of Winter Soldier,
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
there's Whatever the Dark World is, the misuse of Ultron, and Ant-Man seemingly being tacked on the end because eventually there was a need to have him feature somehow.
Wasn't my idea.
What is apparent though is that where leaders like James Gunn and the Russos were allowed to make their films, involvement from above led to less favourable outcomes, although in fairness, there are some exceptions to that rule, which we'll come to later.
What a bunch of a-holes.
While all that's happening in Hollywood, Manchester United's whole operation changed in the wake of Fergie's retirement. Their Phase 2, led by the man who would be king, David Moyes, lasted less than 1 season. And while Giggs did a turn as caretaker, it was old stager Louis van Gaal, their first non-British or Irish manager, a disciplinarian with an impeccable track record, who was the next chosen one. And here was Manchester United's second new dawn of 2014, or their Phase 3, if you will.
A lot of times I use the word horny to my play.
Man United decided to spend their way out of trouble, attempting to change their fortunes by blowing a fortune. And the promise of incomings like Angel Di Maria, Memphis Depay, Marcus Rojo, Daley Blind and Radamel Falcao suggested that they'd be back challenging at the top of the league. Looking back on it now, it wasn't a disaster in relative terms, but it kind of felt like things were starting to unravel. And to help us along with our synergy in this story, warring internal factions from the ownership through to the manager led to only one outcome, and Van Gaal was dismissed mere hours after winning the FA Cup, 15 days after Captain America Civil War hit cinemas. See? Parallels.
Stay down. Final warning.
I could do this all day.
So, with a club in disarray, huge money spent already, and a squad that was clearly lacking pedigree, what you absolutely want to do is look for value in the market and bring in a steady, calming influence at the top who plays well with others.
I was never good on that. In fact, I never tried to be good on that.
Now, looking back on it, and if Jose is to be believed, Manchester United, throughout his customary 2 years spent there, did as well as they possibly could amidst the chaos behind the scenes. And with his customary trophies in that period, when compared to now, most fans would have those times back in a heartbeat, you'd think.
The last time I won a title was 1 year ago.
Retrospectively, Jose's time looks pretty good, while over at Marvel Land, they went on a similarly impressive run across those 2 years, proving that minimal interference and trusting people to do their jobs can, quite often, bring about great results.
He's a friend from work.
Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
I am Groot.
But as we're looking back on the journey of Manchester United from 2008 until now, it seems strange that what once was not deemed good enough feels like an aspiration these days. It's also quite funny to think of Mourinho in those last few months at Old Trafford laying waste to players' futures at the club and ending their times with just a snap of his fingers. And for whatever reason, we need a whole other video to explain them, things were quickly going downhill after a second place league finish. And the more recent cinematic masterpiece of Avengers Infinity War was also quickly followed by Ant-Man and the Wasp and then Captain Marvel. Less said, the better. This is the point in our story where our timelines might diverge a little bit, but stick around as they do come back together. While the carefully laid plans of 21 films were coming together to bring one of the biggest box office smashes of all time, no carefully laid plans were in place whatsoever in the wake of Jose's exit. While Marvel was seemingly learning from what had gone before, Man United were wondering what next. And in what was a bit of a Hail Mary in 2018, brought back Ole Gunnar Solskjær, the man who'd scored to win the Champions League for them 19 years earlier. Where the Russo brothers were entrusted with the keys to the Marvel Kingdom, having proved themselves again and again, Man United were pinning their hopes on a legend on the pitch who'd done okay offered in Norway.
This is gonna work.
I know it is. Because I don't know what I'm going to do if it doesn't.
As things stand, Solskjær is, or rather was, the longest serving manager at the club since Sir Alex, and managed to achieve what appears now to be the holy grail for one side of Manchester, Champions League qualification, finishing in the dizzy height of second place, in fact, in his last full season in charge.
Man United are back.
And looking back, this feels like the last time there was stability at the club. But millions were still lavish in the transfer market with the United tax in full force no matter where they looked. A bloated and nonsensical squad was built with widespread criticism that those at the top were failing in their task and the person charged with managing the next stage of the club's development wasn't up to it. Funny how you don't really know what you've got till it's gone.
Just want to apologise to the fans.
Meanwhile, over at Marvel,
It's good to see you too, sis. We're Eternals.
of course there are those odd occasions and moments that stand out.
What a penalty from Marcus Rashford!
Is this what you wanted?
Martial is there!
But these were fleeting and illustrative of the fact that something was rotten in the state of Stretford, or Los Angeles.
I think something's wrong here.
With calls for change getting louder, there would be no way home for Solskjær at the end of 2021.
Manchester United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjær has been sacked.
But for the record, I really liked that Spider-Man film that came out not long after he was dismissed, and Ralph Rangnick was appointed as interim manager.
I'm gonna wreck it!
And the less said about those 6 months, the better, really.
You know what's never saved the planet? Your sarcasm.
This is when things really do start to come back together in our timelines, though, as what comes next is one of the great cautionary tales of what happens when a vision is backed too much. The man charged with bringing success back to Old Trafford again was Erik ten Hag, a man of singular vision who would be handed the keys to the kingdom. A serial winner, coming off the back of success at Ajax, he'd been the name thrown around for most high-profile jobs for a while. However, what ensued was, at the time, batshit, if you look back at how money was thrown around in the pursuit of doing things differently.
This is absurd.
And that's where the caution comes in, because letting someone do whatever they want, however they want it, means sometimes you get...
Things just got out of hand.
Man United had embarked on their own new phase again under Ten Hag.
Well, you're right.
And quite often, nothing seemed to make sense. But again, there were bright moments where for all the world the ship seemed to be turning, with Champions League qualification achieved again, as well as a League Cup and an FA Cup win. And so it was for Marvel, when James Gunn was given the freedom to make the third Guardians film.
I want you all to know that I'm grateful to fight beside my friends.
But then there's Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, the Marvels, and the 7 million TV shows that we just don't have time to talk about.
Hello.
That were added into the mix at Marvel, while the whole patchwork quilt that they've made is so complex that no one really knows what's going on with it anymore. They say they do, but they don't.
That doesn't make sense.
I can't tell the difference.
And to top it all off, at the same time Man United were playing turgid football that was frankly boring to watch, Marvel had basically stopped spending money on their VFX, which when you're making shows about films that with aliens and multiverses and stuff like that, that's the most important part.
This was fun!
Midway through Ten Hag's tenure is when things inside Man United really start to change. The club had been in slow and painful decline, but on occasion there were moments that gave fans the hope that another new dawn was coming. Now it was time to really accelerate that downward spiral. Unlike their peers, there was no real structure in place above the manager, as there hadn't been really throughout Sir Alex's tenure. In swept Manchester-born Sir Jim Ratcliffe with a plan that would drag the club forward. You can kind of applaud the intention, as at least there was a desire to do things differently.
Looks like you're giving the orders now.
At the same time, over in Marvel land, the recovery effort was on, after the dismal reception of most of what had come out of the last couple of years. No one knew what Ratcliffe would do, but it looked like an underperforming manager might be on the chopping block. Instead, it was all the people behind the scenes who had hardly anything to do with the football team that were under threat. Common wisdom suggested Ten Hag would be dismissed at the end of the 2024 season, but the unlikely FA Cup win stayed the guillotine despite new directorship above, and covetous glances across at Portugal towards the man tipped to replace Pep Guardiola at Man City. Despite the vocal concerns over finance and sustainability on the football side at Man United, Ratcliffe went for hundreds of internal redundancies to stem the flow of money being spent, with seemingly just a snap of his fingers. Strangely then, Ten Hag was given a contract extension and an eye-watering amount of cash to spend that summer, with the United tax once again paid on just about all of them. The club were pinning their hopes for success on continuity in spending, and that's mirrored at Marvel, as all their recovery hopes at the box office and with critics were pinned on going X-rated.
Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go.
Did it work for Marvel? Yes, absolutely, where the box office is concerned, as it became the highest grossing 18 or R-rated film ever. However, the spend to get there with production costs and exorbitant marketing makes working out if this is a success or a flop really difficult. By mirror image, over the same period, almost £1.5 billion was spent at Manchester United, and brought with it, realistically, modest success. See? Synergy again.
Damn right.
Now, hindsight is of course 2020, and most agree that Ten Hag remaining in place after May 2024 was an error. Much as Marvel announced that there would be a master reset coming, the same was needed at that moment in Manchester. Especially when there was supposedly some master plan in place, but nothing about what they were doing felt right. And rumours abound that what the manager wanted and what he was given were two very different things. And this is where we get to another cautionary tale that applies in Manchester and at Marvel. Those above making all the decisions and interfering in everyday matters where they shouldn't also leads to, well, the opposite of what you're trying to achieve.
This might not be the best idea.
Everything then felt a bit rushed at Old Trafford. The next season started poorly, the new signings seemed to struggle, and old issues hadn't been dealt with. Despite apparently having no money, Ten Hag was dispensed with at great cost, and the man they wanted, Ruben Amorim, didn't want to go at that point. But they got him, at great cost. Man United were desperate for their next Brave New World.
I think I am where I'm supposed to be.
And so it seemed with Marvel.
Nothing about this feels right.
Nonsense dialogue, strange decisions, red people running around seemingly having no idea what they were doing, and the film came out as well. In retrospect, it's amazing how fast the wheels fell off across 6 months under Amorim, and how bad it got under the manager, or head coach, or whatever, culminating in the disaster that was the Europa League final. Publicly, Amorim was back to reinvent the club from the ground up.
He needs to demonstrate that he's a great coach over 3 years.
Do things his way, and make United great again. Hopes were once again pinned on a new breed of player, the type that would do things differently, and prove that no matter what anyone said, the formation would work, even though all evidence to the contrary suggested otherwise. For Amorim, it never really worked, while at Marvel, at the same time, we got the Thunderbolts.
We can't do this. No one here is a hero.
Did it work? Well, kind of. It was pretty well received for what it was trying to do, but you can't imagine that the director and stars were delighted that to absolutely 100% make sure that people might think about going to see it, the whole marketing strategy changed to use the word Avengers in it.
We are the Thunderbolts!
It felt like noses and hands were stuck in from on high to interfere, as had been seen more and more over recent years.
Doesn't sound right. Well, that's true.
What's interesting, though, is that those who've spoken negatively about studio influence in the films they were in or directed seem to have fewer opportunities at Marvel, which is mirrored at Man United. Once again, a huge outlay was made in the only summer transfer window that Amorim oversaw, with an almost pathological intent on playing one way with one type of player. Academy products were jettisoned or ostracised in pursuit of success, and with Cunha, Mbeumo, Sesko and Lamens, Man United had their own new Fantastic Four. I'm sure you see where we're going with this. That same summer, Marvel's long-awaited film about their first family came out to much fanfare and promise. A completely new and different look and feel from everything that had gone before, and despite early promise,
Okay.
it once again flattered to deceive. It was more of the same for Marvel, and over the next few months, more of the same for Manchester United.
Morgan Rogers! Oh, it's a peach! It's going to go all the way in!
And despite words to the contrary, everyone didn't seem to be singing from the same hymn sheet at Old Trafford as the season got underway. What felt like an unhappy union descended into an untenable situation, and the latest hero in the story was cut from the picture entirely. There will be no sequel that nobody asked for.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach of Manchester United.
So, where does that leave us now in the world of Manchester United and Marvel? Well, it feels like both have been floundering for years, looking for the chemistry of characters to rediscover what made them great. But when you've had someone lead you to 2 Champions League titles and an unparalleled domestic success in football with a couple of generations of geniuses, and there weren't other superpowers competing with you, how do you go about solving that problem? In another lovely piece of symmetry between the two, it seems the decision from on high is to go all in on bringing back men who will instantly win the hearts and minds of the adoring public and pluck on the heartstrings of nostalgia. Man United have tried it before, and in many ways it's worked for a bit, and then they've kind of reverted to type after a while. On the flip side, these last 7 years were supposed to be the establishment of a new order at Marvel, with new faces and stories to build upon the foundations laid by the people and stars who captured the imagination first time around. A masterstroke if it works, or a decision with a sense of doom.
We will see you in 2 years with Doomsday.
Now, there's a feeling that the next slate of releases, much like the rest of the season at Man United, are pivotal to where they go from here. Where Infinity War and Endgame felt like the culmination of a journey in which we'd emotionally invested, these next 2 Avengers films feel like a segue to get us somewhere else. Almost like a couple of interim films that will allow the full stop to be placed at the end of a sentence before the next good stuff can start, now everyone's figured out what they're doing. No, honestly, they definitely know what they're doing. There's a plan and everything. It's written down. No, you can't see it.
That's a really bad sign.
Man United have time to save their season, very much depending upon what success now looks like, and to build some sort of new foundation for whatever happens next. But you wonder how long anyone will care about it. With those around them getting stronger and the risk of fatigue over this ongoing soap opera, how long until they're just consigned to the also-rans, living on past glories, while Marvel have their own battle on to stay relevant and keep people watching, whether on the big screen or the small. The biggest risk to both, if they consistently underperform and underwhelm, is apathy. Global fandom in the face of disappointment will only last so long. What's clear though is that both are desperate for a brand new day, at least to try to set them on the right path again.